Hey guys, it's Coach Reid Hall here. I'm with Sophie and Alex, and we're going to be giving you a detailed inside look into their training. So these are both national team beach volleyball players and both graduates at USC where they played on the beach volleyball team. So I really want to give you guys a detailed inside look, not only into their strength training, but also how we warm up and the dynamic portion that they do. So they're completely different athletes. Sophie is a very fast twitch, explosive athlete naturally, and she's very, very mobile, but not as naturally strong. Where Alex, on the other hand, she's a more stiff, tighter athlete, more naturally strong, but not quite as explosive. The way that we handle the two athletes are completely different, and I want you to see that contrast. Sophie's also in her 10th week of training, so we've been able to move from more simplistic to very explosive, where Alex is at the very beginning of her off-season training. So you've seen the contrast between two different athletes, and how they train is going to give you some insight on how performance athletes work out. The first part of our warm-up that's not shown here is the ladies do a little bit of soft tissue work, and then we move into some low-intensity track drills to get the heart rate up and the blood flowing before we actually move into our dynamic stretching. So after they're done their track drills, we move into some dynamic stretching. The first one we're gonna do is a 90-90 hip stretch. So they're gonna hold this stretch for about 10 seconds, and then what they're gonna do with their back leg is they're gonna start lifting that back leg off the ground, internally rotating at the hip. Now this is crucial because Alex is someone that needs to work on her hip internal rotation. It's also a great glute activation exercise as well. So next we move into high plank to downward dog. So they start in a high plank position, then they push their butt up into the air and get long right through here and pushing their heels towards the ground. So what's gonna happen, you're feeling a nice stretch through your calves, your hamstrings, but it's also gonna be a nice stretch through your back. We also wanna promote good upward rotation of the shoulder blade. Then we transition into what we call a Spider-Man lunge. So it's gonna happen, you're drive your knee out, you're gonna push that knee out, then you're gonna push your hips all the way back, feel a nice stretch through your hamstrings. You're gonna come back down, inhale, long exhalation, and open up towards that front knee. Then you're gonna go back into your high plank position, good, and switch legs. Okay, so this is more of an active mobility exercise. You just wanna make sure you're taking long, relaxing breaths as you're doing this, and make sure you move through this one piece at a time. We're then gonna move into a quad stretch, into a side lunge, and an overhead reach. So this looks now a little more volleyball specific as you move through here. So that side lunge position is a position that you need to be mobile and have stability and control, because that's where you pass and defend a lot of balls from. So as they do this, they grab their foot. The first thing they're gonna do is squeeze their butt, push their hip forward so they feel a stretch in their quads and their hip flexors. Sit back into that side lunge, create a platform, and reach overhead. The next exercise is called a bench T-spine mobilization. So in this exercise, it's a great stretch through our triceps, our shoulders, our lats, and it promotes good extension in our back, which is extremely important when I'm attacking a ball. It needs good extension and rotation. So it's really important when you do this and you sit back, you take a long exhalation and you sit back. If you take notice, they're not getting extended in their lower back, they're just sitting their butt right back and feeling a nice stretch all through their lats, their triceps, and shoulders. The last mobility drill that we're gonna go through is a side lying windmill. Now for this exercise, or this drill, helps improve our thoracic rotation. It's also a nice stretch through our shoulders and our chest. So when you're doing this, you wanna keep trying to push that top knee down. You're gonna slide your hand forward, bring the arm around, and your eyes follow that hand as you open up through your chest. After we're done this last mobility drill, we're gonna move into our activation component, where our focus is on stimulating the muscles, getting the muscles working, contracting well, before we move on to anything more dynamic and explosive. So we're gonna go through a series of isometric and other activation exercise to get the muscles stimulated properly so they can move in our dynamic exercise. So we actually wanna make sure we get all the muscles groups right now of our lower body working really well before we do anything explosive. So this first one, they're driving their heel directly back into that wall or that pole, and their hamstrings are contracting hard, or at least they should be contracting hard. And I like to get feedback from the athletes, like, is it contracting hard? Hamstrings working, ladies? Yeah. Good. And so we want to build a lot of tension there. We stick around for 20 seconds and then we switch sides. So ladies, switch over to the other side. So this first one that we're doing is a hamstring focused activation exercise. We find that these are pretty intense. You can really get the hamstrings contracting hard when you push in. So now we're going to move into more of a glute activation exercise. So now I just want you guys to rotate the foot out a little bit. So now as we rotate that foot out, open up the hip, and we're pushing in, you're going to feel way more tension building right in the glutes. So this is a great glute activation exercise that's important for all volleyball players. Okay, let's switch over to the other side. So we're gonna go to the other side. Same thing again, having that hip rotated out and driving in. Ladies, feeling the glutes contracting? Yeah. Good. You're trying to build tension. Me as a coach, I want to be asking them, do you guys feel a difference between the left and right side? Do you guys feel one side's contracting harder than the other? That's all important information for us to know. The next one that we'll move into is we're gonna laterally push our leg in there. So what you're gonna find is the muscles on the outside of your leg up into your hip and glute there are gonna be working hard. So once again, they'll push in for 20 seconds, applying force hard into that pole. Ladies, can you feel those muscles activating? Yeah, keep pushing, so you'll hold for 20 seconds. After the 20 seconds, you'll switch sides once again. So the next exercise that we're gonna do is gonna be a hip flexor activation exercise. So they're gonna drive up their knee up and squeeze and hold their hip flexor for a second. The hip flexors not only get really tight, but they also get really weak. So before we do anything dynamic, we wanna make sure they're contracting well. We do 15 of these hip flexor marches on each side, squeeze and hold the top. Ladies, you can feel the hip flexor working? Good, they're just focusing their breath. So exhales, they drive that knee up and squeeze and hold for a second. This activation exercise is called a lateral slider. So this is an amazing exercise for activating our groin or our adductor muscles. It's also amazing glute activation exercise. And it's just a really good movement because we know we need to be strong and stable in that side lunge position to be a good passer and a defender. So our final two activation exercises involve our ankle joint, which we know is very, very important for volleyball athletes. So for all these activation exercises, we're just making one round through them. And the idea is that we're stimulating the muscles, we're priming them so we're ready to do our strength or power related work. So this is a one leg calf raise. We focus on getting a full range of motion. So let that heel drop as low as possible. You're gonna get up as high on that toe as you possibly can. We're just do 10 reps each side and just feel that full range of motion and getting those calves to work. Our last activation exercise is our tibialis raises. So you'll see the muscles in the front of the leg here working and contracting hard. There's a lot of stimulation on our calves through playing volleyball, a lot of jumping and landing, but this area becomes weak. So this is often problematic and leads to shin splints and things like this. So we need to stimulate those muscles and make sure those are working well, especially before jumping. All right, so we just finished our general warm-up and our activation drills. Ladies, how you feeling?
Good, boy, I'm ready to go.
Okay, so the next part, we're gonna move into our dynamic part of the workout. Sophie's gonna be doing this, but Alex is not. So Alex is just like a week into her training, so we've taken out all jumping and all explosive work until we've built some more strength and stability. However, Sophie, we've been getting after it because she's built a lot of strength. She's now 10 plus weeks into her training. So these next couple of drills you're gonna watch Sophie do, and that will be the wrap of our warm-up and preparation before we get into our strength work. So our first dynamic exercise are single leg stability jumps. So now these aren't about jumping high and explosively. This is about stability and control. It's really working on your braking mechanisms when you land to stabilize. So we're trying to make sure that knee's not falling in, that foot is stable when it hits the ground, and she contracts and locked in. So what she's gonna feel is her muscles starting to burn. Sophie, are muscles burning?
Yep.
Yeah, and so you're gonna feel those muscles activating. And so this is really important to do before we get into our explosive work, making sure those muscles are working well, making sure those stability patterns are in place so that when you're actually jumping higher from all your performance improvements that you've made, you're also landing with good stability and control. And so if you can turn around and switch legs, we'll go through again. So it's also very important in volleyball, you land in all different directions. You land on one leg, you land on 2 feet, you land laterally. So you need to be able to dynamically stabilize all those different positions, and that's what we're working on here. Our last dynamic exercise before we get in the workout is dynamic block jumps. Now, Sophie, you just need to do 3 of those each side, and then you can rest. So we're starting to add more volleyball specific work into what she's doing because we're a little bit deeper into her training. So when you're doing these, it's very important that we land feet under our hips, and then when I push out laterally, my feet are still under my hips. So we're working on really good jumping and landing mechanics. Can we do another set there just to show? But when we're actually doing these, give yourself plenty of rest times, and you want to be fast and powerful. But if you watch her feet, she's always absorbing the landing, and her feet are always under her hips. That's very crucial. This is a good time to work on building really good, strong motor patterns into your body. How are those?
Good, tough, I'm out of breath.
All right, and the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna have a little close to this video, and then we're gonna move on to the strength component of the workout. So this concludes our warm-up and dynamic part of our workout. Next, we're gonna move into the strength part of our workout, which is a lower body strength day for both of these athletes, but completely different workouts. We're both doing lower body strength and upper body injury prevention. If you guys like this video, please share, like, and subscribe. I'm really just here to help educate the volleyball community on how to train to be a more efficient athlete. And if you're serious about your training, then check out our volleyball programs.